What's up guys? Marty Grisanti, Suplex Properties, Upstate Home Buyers. I hope you guys are doing great. Welcome back to the channel, where today we're going to talk about KPIs, right? So when you're new to wholesaling or being in business or real estate investing in general, KPIs are, first off, what does that stand for, right? You might be someone that's newer or even maybe a couple years in and you don't know what this means. KPIs, you hear it, you've read about it, but you were too, maybe you weren't more confident to ask the question. So what's KPIs? Well, KPIs is key performance indicators. So what KPIs essentially do, guys, is they really help you figure out how to run a business. They really tell you the numbers needed to know, hey, how can we either increase production or, if there's something wrong, well, it's probably something to do with your KPIs. And that's really important, guys. KPIs they're critical for your business. And it's really just letting you know, hey, here is where your performance is going. Here's where it was. Here's maybe where we can increase. Here's where we can take a step back and maybe do some look at decreasing some things, right? So one of the problems that happens for a lot of new individual investors or wholesalers or flippers is that you're not really sure what you're supposed to track. So I'm going to talk about a couple things and I'm going to talk about a couple rules, right? So I'm going to tell you, rule number one is that don't get too crazy on your KPI. When you're just starting out, you really want to track everything and know every number and every detail. The problem is that it's overkill. What you want to do, and I'm going to go over a couple of them with you, is really just track the major, most important indicators. Again, that's why it's called key performance indicators. It's the most key to your performance. So that's number one, is don't get too crazy. Just start tracking some of the basics. And I'm going to talk about those in just one second. But the second thing, the second most important thing to do is, if you are going to start tracking your KPIs, is to make sure that you are keeping yourself accountable. Make sure that if you have a teammate or if you have employees and you're telling them, hey, we need to be doing X, Y, Z, well, you need to be meeting with them and letting them know if they hit those KPIs or not. So having team meetings on a weekly, monthly basis are critical for the success and for you to really know if you're hitting your KPIs or if it's even something you're tracking, right? So guys, just start off with knowing this. A lot of companies, a lot of newer, even more established companies are not doing a lot of this stuff. So this is huge. If you can start tracking this, because guess what? What gets measured gets improved, right? What gets measured gets improved. It's really important to start tracking your numbers, and it's something that you can then find if it's a position you want to potentially, for instance, increase their pay. If someone's asking, hey, I want to increase my pay, well, let's look at your KPIs. So it's just helping you understand what is going to be the best and most effective use of your time, and that's, I really believe, KPI. Okay, so here's a couple that I think are really important to start tracking, especially if you're new. So number one is profit on the contract. Pretty simple and standard, right? But start tracking what is the amount of profit you're going to be making on this contracted deal, right? So once you get the deal under contract and it's now being in disposition and you got it assigned and now it's ready to be closed on, well, what was that profit you gained from those deals? Start tracking it. I know it sounds silly, but again, a lot of companies do not do this. A lot of wholesalers don't do this. And you're kind of not really sure then of where you were for the month. So it's a simple one, but it's an important one. All right, profit on the contract. The second one that I believe you really need to start tracking, especially if it is a measure of yours, it's something that you take in something that you do, is making sure that you have the profits that are already been sold, right? So the profit on the contract that has already been sold. So some of those are important, like the profit. So the second really important KPI that I want you to start tracking is your expenses, right? How much are your expenses in regards to your marketing, in regards to your costs of maybe your administration, your transactional coordinators? All those things are really important to be tracking so you know again, you want to know what is the net, right? What's my net profit? Not your gross profit, right? So your gross profit is one thing, but after all your expenses is where we're going to get that net. And that's what we want. That's what we really are looking for, is that net profit, okay? So that's number 2. So you want to have, number 1, we want to know the profit on the contract. Number 2, we want to know our expenses. So our expenses are, how much are we spending monthly on those marketing pieces, right? Are you paying for a dialer? Are you paying for, like, let's say, like a prop stream? All those things you want to start figuring out and making sure you keep track of those numbers. Okay, a couple more that I really think are important is that for us, we're heavy cold callers. We believe in the power and the science of cold calling, right? So we want to know how many dials are being made, right? But what I like to know, and I think what my partner Matt would tell you, is just as important, if not more important, is how many conversations are we having, right? How many conversations are we having on a daily basis? And I don't count anything under 2 minutes as a conversation. Shout out to a mentor of mine, Ronnie. And so again, conversations, I want to know how long are these, because this is important to know how warm that lead really is. So you can make 100 dials, but if you are making 10 really good conversations, hey, I'm okay with you making 10 dials and having 10 really good conversations and calling it a day, right? Especially because I know that conversations are what gives us appointments, and appointments are where we're going to make our money, right? Which leads me to my third thing that I want you guys to track, right? So number 1 is the profits on the contract, and you can really take that profit on the contract into profit that's sold and then profit that's been contracted, right? So those things might change, right? Little things get divvied out and sometimes they get drilled down a bit. But the second thing is your expenses, right? Your marketing and your admin costs. Third thing being your dials, right? And the conversations that you're having. And what were we going to talk about the other thing, right? Well, we're going to talk about, well, that was it. I think that's really what we wanted to talk about. I think it was the KPIs that are the most important. It's the profits for your contracted contracts, expenses and marketing, and then it's your dials and conversations. Oh, yes, now I know. The last thing, which would be your fourth KPI, is the amount of appointments that you have. So how many appointments does it take for you to get to that contract? That's kind of what we're trying to figure out, right? So every system, every company, everybody's going to be different. So we want to know how many appointments is it going to take to get to us to have, how many appointments equal a contract, right? That's what we want to know. Well, again, it starts with your dials, it starts with the conversations, it's going to then lead to appointments, which then leads to your profits, which we talked about in the beginning. And then we can take those profits and that contract, subtract it by the expenses, and that's what's going to get us that net profit, and that's what puts food on our table. All right, guys. Well, I appreciate you coming back, and we'll talk to you soon.